It is another week and another episode of video gaming greatness and completely random facts about completely random topics. Admittedly, I began working on this episode while in a state of extreme exhaustion and feeling a little burnt out from my day job as a storyboard artist and animator who is definitely being exploited and not getting paid enough to be fully financially stable, which is one of the many reasons I started this YouTube channel to begin with since.
Only money that I want.
And to hurt people?
Yeah, the people. I will show you with your last phone.
So, if the video is not as funny or entertaining, I do apologize, but because consistency is key and I can't leave my audience hanging for too long, I decided to make this video anyway because
even in death I serve the Omnisire.
But I digress. Today's video game feature is most certainly on that list of weird games I've played and turns out to be available for free on Steam. A bizarre little indie title called Naissancee, which I think means birth in French.
Oh, say it again, Dexter.
Omelette de fromage.
It's one of those strange, extremely artistic and high concept type of games where a simple white cube has some kind of higher philosophical meaning, and while gazing upon it, in the game world itself will lead you to question your very existence as you peel back the multitude of layers of the so-called facade of modern society that is made up of nothing more but social constructs such as gender. A society where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where we forget who we are as we lose our very identities to consumerism and material pursuits. War is also unjust and politics are corrupt. Clean your room and maintain personal responsibility. But remember that brutalist architecture was meant to instill a sense of always being watched. You are what you eat after all, but you're also just an empty shell being influenced by various outside factors. So much so that you must question whether you are really you and...
I simply say this, we live in a society.
Yes, everything I just said was complete and utter nonsense, but that's the type of word salad you can expect by most people reviewing this game on YouTube, who for some reason all seem to be video essayists. You know, the ones who sometimes even take the most mundane shit ever and somehow manage to turn it into a whole 2-hour podcast of them telling you how collecting rocks is actually symbolic for one's need to control everything, as is evidenced by Aristotle's philosophy, or something along those lines.
How does one describe drama? Drama is life, with the dull bits cut out.
This quote has nothing to do with the actual video, but I found it to be profound, or rather sagacious, a trait that I find is hard to come by in our modern society. You see, while I write the script in the corner of my local coffee shop, I'm noticing more and more about the nuances of how people's understandings of various concepts can vary. Which leads into what I want to talk about today, why 90% of you don't really get my videos.
But I must admit quite ironically after all that mockery that I am actually a fan of some video essays here on YouTube, especially the informative ones. Wait, are my videos considered video essays?
Ironic.
I'm not entirely sure, but what I am sure about is that even though I was engaging in some light banter earlier, Naissancee is actually the type of game that will definitely result in every review of it indeed being a video essay, since even the developer Limas 5 fully intended for it to be viewed as more than just a game, and kinda more along the lines of a virtual and fully interactive art piece with a deeper meaning. What that deeper meaning is though, I can't really tell you, because I'm not that smart, but I'm sure you can find some video essayist here on YouTube like Max Derrott, Jacob Geller or Tail Foundry that can give you their opinions on it. Naissancee doesn't really have much of a story to be quite frank, and the only clues you're given as a player is the phrase "Lucy is lost" at the beginning of the game, as your character Lucy, who seemingly lacks a physical appearance, has to make her way through a labyrinthian-like never-ending megastructure, looking at all the incredible but megalophobia and claustrophobia-inducing environments, and solving a bunch of puzzles along the way which may or may not cause you to have a seizure, with all the flickering lights and stuff. But all jokes aside, there are moments in the game that leave you staring at your computer screen in awe with how vast and endless the enormous megastructure is, which, if you look long enough, begins to somewhat resemble something. A certain manga that I briefly mentioned in a recent video. A manga written and illustrated by a Japanese author and artist named Tsutomu Nihei, who started his career as an architect. A manga from the late 90s, which has only in the last decade or so gained massive popularity outside of Japan. A manga called Blame, or Blam, or Blam, or Buramu in Japanese. And the reason this game looks so much like Blame, or Blam, or Buramu is because the developer was heavily inspired by it. And if you look closely enough, you'll find some of the structures in the game itself resemble many of those found in the manga. Now, as I had already stated, I briefly mentioned Blam and its prequel Noise in my previous video about the works of Tsutomu Nihei, wherein I tried to highlight some of the many other works he had done, since I felt that most people tend to only ever focus on these two. Sometimes even only on Blam itself, and not even realizing that Noise was its prequel. But in this video, I would like to most certainly, without any hesitation whatsoever, behave like a total cheapskate and attempt to capitalize on the popularity of Blam by going a little more in detail about it than I did in the previous video. Well, because I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel faster by tapping into slightly recognizable and popular topics, so that I can sell my dignity to the YouTube overlords, get monetized, and begin raking in some of that sweet ad money, because
I like money!
Now, if you haven't already seen it, please do go and check out that other video I did previously on Tsutomu Nihei if you wish to see other examples of his work outside of the Blam manga. In a nutshell though, Tsutomu Nihei was born in the year 1971 and initially studied to be an architect before deciding to rather invest time into an entirely different career path of becoming a mangaka, which today was probably the best choice he ever made, and I'm sure he feels that way as well, seeing as his career has turned out pretty alright. Now, I won't go into all the other manga he has done. As I had said earlier, if you wish to know more about those, go check out that other video by following the link at the end of this video or in the description below. Today I would like to focus solely on Blam, because it is arguably his most famous manga, next to probably Knights of Sidonia, and usually the starting point for people who discover his other work. Well, at least it was for me. I first came across Blam via the Netflix anime adaptation, which, in my honest opinion, while it does serve to draw in mainstream audiences, it pales in comparison to the actual source material, and has a completely different theme and overall atmosphere as well. Blam started life as a one-shot manga which Nihei had produced for the 1995 Afternoon 4 Seasons award competition. He was awarded the Jiro Gunitz. He was awarded the Jiro Taniguchi Special Prize, and 2 years later would end up publishing Blam as a full-fledged manga in the monthly afternoon manga anthology published by Kodansha. The story of Blam revolves around a lone but mysterious wanderer named Killy, armed with an extremely powerful gun called a gravitational beam emitter, as he traverses an indescribably enormous megastructure which, according to the lore, may have already stretched as far out as the edges of our solar system. His quest to find someone that has net terminal genes in order to access a vast virtual reality system that exists alongside our own called the Netsphere. Now, right off the bat, to those of you who are not familiar with Blam, you must be sitting there with a whole lot of questions, which is a completely normal reaction to have when reading Blam for the first time as well.
Completely normal phenomenon.
At first glance, aside from the extremely detailed and awe-inspiring artwork on each and every single page and within every single panel as well, especially regarding the environment and structures. When trying to figure out what exactly is going on, it can be quite the exercise in mental calculations. Since in the very first couple of chapters of this manga series, we aren't given that much context as to what exactly is taking place here. All we know is that this random dude, Killy, is wandering around this enormous, what looks to be a never-ending cyberpunk-esque cityscape, and from time to time facing off against some seemingly dangerous foes, which we later find out are part of two distinct factions in this fictional world called Safeguards and Silicon Life, and that Killy himself is trying to find the aforementioned net terminal gene. It would only be until Tsutomu Nihei would later release a prequel to Blam called Noise in the year 2000 that we would finally get some sort of backstory and lore to the world of Blam, which kinda helped it to make a little more sense despite a few minor contradictions between the two mangas. Noise is set in a distant future where the human population has ballooned in size, resulting in massive layered cities that stretch for thousands of miles. In the backdrop of this post-apocalyptic cyberpunk dystopia, a police investigator named Susono Musobi and her partner Closer attempt to crack the case on a series of strange child abductions that have been taking place in the bowels of the city. When her own partner gets kidnapped and murdered, she uncovers a brutal and zealous cult called the Order, operating from the shadows, that have been routinely kidnapping people and attempting to transform them into what they refer to as Silicon Life, in their reverence of an entity which they believe exists within the net sphere called Net Chaos. Susono herself eventually also falls at the hands of the cult, but is later on resurrected as a safeguard enforcer. She uses her new powerful abilities to utterly destroy the cult, but by this point it is already too late for the city and humanity itself, as the newly created Silicon Life, which are sort of like biomechanical cyborgs, begin to increase in number, and as humans themselves begin to lose access to the net sphere as a result of an infectious mutation which causes them to either lose or be born without net terminal genes. Thus the Safeguards, a sort of AI-controlled security force, begin to target human beings without the net terminal genes, and a sharp decline in the human population of Earth and the megacity shortly follows. This then eventually leads into the events of Blam, which is set some 3,000 years into the future following Noise. By the time of the story in Blam, the massively sprawling city featured in Noise has become a vast solar system spanning megastructure, though the exact size of it is never stated in the manga, but there are some speculations among fans that it has either completely engulfed our entire solar system, or at least gone as far as somehow making the gas giant Jupiter part of the structure. There's actually a part in the manga which showcases that. The reason for this is due to humans losing access to the net sphere, a sort of alternate virtual reality or dimension which kind of operates like a highly advanced version of our modern internet, but on like a super extreme quantum level, to the point of even being able to construct objects and entities and then downloading them into base reality, like the Safeguards. When humans lost the net terminal genes due to genetic mutation over time, it resulted in them being completely locked out of the net sphere and simultaneously being targeted by the Safeguard, which could be thought of as a type of antivirus or security force that not only restricts access to those without the net terminal genes, but also violently erases them to prevent any misuse or exploitation of the net sphere, especially for sinister reasons. This was all further amplified by the death cult known as the Order back in Noise, having stolen technology from the net sphere to create the new life form known as silicone creatures or silicone life, a type of biomechanical cyborg race which do not contain any carbon particles in their material makeup like all other life forms, but are instead made up of silicone as mentioned in their name. So, since these silicone creatures became such a threat, and humans lost the ability to access the net sphere through a lack of net terminal genes, the administration that runs the net sphere lost majority of its control, and this then resulted in the safeguard decimating the human population, and all technology within the city, all connected to the netsphere, going absolutely haywire. With no one to access the netsphere and restore order, the giant mechanical and robotic constructs known as the Builders continue to build and build without any directive or goal, and this then too resulted in chaotic and bizarre structures upon structures that made no sense and had no direction, further expanding the city into what is now known as the Megastructure, vast layers upon layers of concrete and steel jungles that seem to have no end. And thus we get to our protagonist of the kinda absent story in Blame, a young man named Killy who turns out to actually have been around for centuries, wandering the megastructure in search of anyone who may have net terminal genes. We find out later that Killy himself is actually a safeguard, but unlike the rogue safeguard who now hunt down and eliminate human beings, Killy is a provisional safeguard, called upon by the administration who run the netsphere, and charged with the task of both protecting humanity and the goal of finding a way to access the netsphere by finding someone with net terminal genes to put an end to the never-ending expansion of the megastructure by reprogramming the builder robots and shutting down the rogue safeguards, thus saving what is left of the human population. Along the way he is assisted by yet another cyborg named Cibo, whose mind now exists in an artificial body. The two of them embark on the quest of finding the net terminal genes together, while both encountering small pockets of primitive humans along the way, like the Electrofisher tribes, and encountering deadly foes like the various factions of Silicon Life that try to thwart their attempts at saving the human race, due to seeing this as a threat to their own existence and believing themselves to be the rightful successors of sentient life in the universe, as well as facing off against the ever-present hordes of rogue safeguards, including another provisional safeguard unit similar to Killy, but with a more hostile intent, named Sanakan, who many fans speculate may either be or is based on the likeness of Susono from Noise. Now, I don't want to spoil too much of the extremely confusing story of Blam. If you're interested in it, I highly recommend you go find it somewhere and read it. I also feel like I may have missed some stuff, or maybe even gotten a few things wrong, since a lot of the lore for Blam and Noise is very up in the air, so to speak. Tsutomu Nihei doesn't really do much explaining or exposition within the story itself, and much of its lore that you now find on forums and wiki sites are the result of tireless efforts by fans putting together the bits and pieces we're given by Nihei in the manga and connecting the dots. So take what I present here with a grain of salt and maybe discover the lore for yourself. While the story may be frustrating for some readers, especially those that prefer every little detail being spelled out for them with a shit ton of exposition, part of what makes Nihei's story so cool is that there is plenty of room for the reader to explore and speculate, and allowing one to come to their own conclusions. Some of these conclusions and thought experiments that exist within the fandom of Blam, or rather Nihei fandom, is that all his stories are connected in some way, in a sort of Tsutomu-verse, with many fans believing that each manga he did later on, like Biomega, Abara, Knights of Sidonia and Opossums, either happen in the same timeline as Blam or in a sort of alternate reality or parallel universes. The reason for this is because Tsutomu Nihei himself enjoys using similar themes and concepts across all his stories. One concept that appears in pretty much all of them is the mega corporation Toa Heavy Industries, which was first introduced in Blam, but would also go on to exist in Biomega and Knights of Sidonia. There is also the fact that he enjoys using similar themes, like that of rampant technological progress, to the point of causing the downfall of humanity as is seen in Blam, Biomega and Abara, cyborgs and similar creatures like the Gauna in Abara and Knights of Sidonia, the continued struggle of humanity against overwhelming odds and extinction-causing forces, the fact that at least in some of his works he has a thing for stoic, silent characters, which all seem to resemble Killy from Blam. This includes Denji in Abara and Zoichi in Biomega, as well as Ithero in Opossums, and the similarities in settings such as the Megastructure, or massively sprawling dystopian cityscapes and concrete jungles. Oh, and let's not forget the talking bears. But rather than a strict canon, the connections between his works are more like echoes and variations on similar ideas, creating a Nihei-verse or Tsutomu-verse, if you will, where individual stories can exist alongside each other, bound by a common aesthetic and thematic framework. And while some fans tend to speculate that works like Abara and Knights of Sidonia might fit into somewhat of a timeline with Blam, with Abara potentially bridging the creation of the Gauna and the cybernetic societies seen in later works, it's safe to say that Nihei seems to enjoy leaving his stories vague and open-ended in order to encourage fans to find their own connections and interpretations of a shared universe. There is also the weird fact that Blam exists in the universe of Knights of Sidonia, but more as a TV show that the characters of the Sidonia generational ship tune into weekly rather than an actual reality, which adds to all the simulation theory stuff that goes on in Blam as well. Blam would, as I mentioned earlier, be adapted into two wildly distinct anime films, with the first one capturing the essence and overall feel of the manga a lot better, but being even more confusing since it was simply made up of disjointed and unrelated segments from the manga, whereas the new one only focused on the Electrofishers arc in the manga, and how Killy fights the safeguards to save their tribe, but making it more digestible and appealing for a wider, more mainstream audience. Blam would also end up getting two sequels that showcase the events after the end of the original manga, called Blam Netsphere Engineer, wherein an unnamed authority engineer from the administration arrives to assist a local human tribe in shutting down a safeguard installation known as a matter conversion tower, which downloads safeguard exterminators to the tribe's location with the intention of destroying their small outpost in the vastness of the megastructure. The second sequel, which is also a short story, is called Blam 2 and follows the exploits of a silicone creature named P-Cell, who had initially appeared in the original manga as an enemy of Killy and Cibo, but who now has been reincarnated into a new body and is living among a small community of other, more peaceful silicone life creatures. Her community is destroyed and all her compatriots are killed when they are attacked by humans who have begun working together to repopulate the megastructure. And when only she is left alive, she decides to go on a long journey to attempt to find the surface or outer level of the megastructure. Towards the end, she is aided by Killy, who, unlike in the original Blam story where he indiscriminately killed silicone life, assists her in escaping the megastructure and sends her off into space to find a suitable planet for her to begin anew and perhaps make a home for her kind, as she carries the building blocks to recreate silicone-based beings. Both of these stories take place hundreds of years after the final events of Blam, and while it isn't overtly stated, there are enough hints to suggest that Killy and Cibo were successful in their mission to find the net terminal genes, recalibrate the net sphere, and save the remnants of humanity. But from what I could tell, they seem to be incomplete, and even feel so when reading them, as if there was meant to be more, but both got cancelled halfway through, leaving us with very vague and extremely disappointing endings. One last piece of extra Blam related media one can look into is called Blam Academy, where Nihei completely flips the script into something vastly different by reimagining the story as a Japanese high school spin-off series that parodies the events in the original manga and is a lot more steamy for some reason. But after a bit more digging online, it seems that Nihei didn't actually want to do Blam Academy, and that it was more of a response to his editors pressuring him to make the original Blam more sexual and romantic.
Why the can't corporate idiots just leave cool shit alone for f***'s sake? They do this every time with every single awesome franchise. Hell, if Tsutomu Nihei's editors ever watch this video, here's all I have to say to you.
You go suck a dick and a banana, cause that is all you are.
Piece of advice to any creatives out there: if you ever want to make something, rather try to do it independently. Yes, it's a lot harder to achieve, but at least you get the creative freedom to make something that's true to you, but that more people can also genuinely relate to, and you don't have to worry about some corporate breathing down your neck because it either doesn't have enough tits and ass or because it's not inclusive enough. These people aren't creative at all. They care only about lining their pockets at the expense of the artist and projecting their own agendas. I guess that's all I've got for you today. My reason for making this episode was because after the previous Tsutomu Nihei related one, I figured I should give a bit more of a detailed explanation of his first manga, Blam, which aside from Knights of Sidonia is one of his more widely known works, and one of my favorite sci-fi stories ever written and illustrated, and believe me when I say that I try to recommend it to literally anyone I meet, because I just love it so much. So aside from being my attempt at once again growing my channel by tapping into the hype, it's also my way of sharing something I just find really cool. In fact, that is really the goal of this channel to begin with. Yes, I would like for it to become successful so that I could possibly earn a living off it and escape the never-ending and depressing rat race that I find myself in. But also, this channel gives me the opportunity to simply share things that I find cool and awesome. Since I'm sure most of you nerds out there can relate, most people tend to not be very interested in the things we find fascinating. Tsutomu Nihei's work, be it Blam, Biomega, or even something as recent as Tower Dungeon, stands as a testament to true creativity and artistic skill. Especially in this era of tech bros pushing generative AI so much, one has to wonder if they're trying to replace humanity with machines to satisfy their secret desire of playing God or fulfill some weird fetish.
Live demo, and frankly I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Can you help me calm my nerves a little bit?
Oh, you're doing a live demo right now? That's awesome!
Nah, I want you to tell him a bedtime story about robots and love.
Oh, a bedtime story about robots and love? I got you covered!
Hey yo, what the fuck?
It's nice to see that there are still creative people like Tsutomu Nihei in the world, who I hope will continue to inspire awe in manga and science fiction fans alike with his intricately designed megastructures and cybernetic biomechanical entities for many years to come. If you have not read Blam, or even if you aren't that much interested in the story, at least do yourselves a favor and search up Blam art online and prepare to have your mind blown by all that intricate detail and creativity. Anyway, thank you once again for sticking through to the end of the episode, which was basically just me gushing over one of my favorite manga works of all time. If you like my content, please consider subscribing and perhaps sharing this video with people you think may be interested, giving it a like, and if you want to, maybe leaving a few nice and encouraging words in the comments. Thank you for all the support, and I'll see you again next week, same time and same place.